Welcome to the 2020-2021 Athens High School Orientation. This is Mr. Springer, the high school principal. I welcome everybody back to school this year. Different from in years past, orientation this year is for all students. The reason being is we're starting in a completely different learning environment. The information found in these slides is going to be useful for any student watching this. So no matter whether you're returning to the building as a returning student or if you're new to the building, the information found in this presentation is going to be extremely useful. Although we'll cover quite a few topics in this presentation, we can summarize these down into, about 6 main topics. Introductions, and we'll introduce you to the people in the front offices. How to decipher your AHS schedule. How to change your schedule. Current graduation requirements, earning credits more particularly. The class of 2024 testing requirements to graduate. Athletic eligibility, and some other odds and ends such as fees and changes to courses. So we want to welcome you to some of the staff you will see in the front offices. Among our administrative team at Athens High School consists of me, Mr. Springer, the building principal, Mr. Rogers, my assistant principal, and Mr. Guimond, our athletic director. We have 2 school counselors here at Athens High School. Mrs. Powell works with students whose last name begins with the letters A through L, and Mrs. Ampabin, who works with students whose last name begins with M through Z. We have 3 administrative assistants who work in our front offices. All of them have different duties, but they all are great to work with. We have Mrs. Lacey Sorrell, who is the principal secretary. More often than not, when you call here, you will be connected with her. We have Mrs. Unita Kokenauer. She works with the guidance department and our athletic director. And then Mrs. Tracy Murphy, who runs our attendance and works with our assistant principal. We're really excited to work with our students this year. We've learned a lot over the course of last semester, and we're prepared to begin engaging students in a digital or virtual learning environment. We just ask that everybody be patient as we work through a new methodology of learning together. So we received a lot of feedback from students, teachers, and parents, and we developed a class schedule that is flexible to allow students some flexibility in how they learn and when they learn, but also it's standardized as per a bell schedule is run. So there will be learning as no different as if they were in the building, and learning depending on the flexibility that that family or that student needs. So when students log into Infinite Campus, they will be able to see their class schedule. At Athens High School, we run an 8-period schedule, meaning there's really 7 opportunities for students to take classes. One section or one class every student has is academic coaching. Now, if you're coming up from the middle school, this is similar to when you had advisory. So every student has academic coaching in their period. It's considered a non-academic period. It's meant for intervention and extra help. Periods 1 through 5 and then periods 7 and 8 are what we consider an academic period, meaning a period where a student would take a class to get credits. If we look at second semester, so over on the right, this student has a study hall. Now in this particular schedule, there is no study hall first semester. But this study hall, if this student did have a study hall, say in 3rd period over here, first semester, that would be an opportunity for that student to complete asynchronous work, receive a little extra help, or work on homework. But it's not necessarily a scheduled class where the student would log in and check in with a study hall monitor. So one of the changes we had to make this year was we have to plan for when students return to school. And one of the things we had to change was our bell schedule to accommodate that. So if you look at this bell schedule here, it's what we call an alternating block bell schedule, meaning you have longer periods in a given day. So period 1 is actually 90 minutes instead of 43 minutes, but you see less periods in a day. So it's broken into a day A, which is our odd periods, periods 1, 3, 5, 7, and then day B, periods 2, 4, 6, 8. So day A, Tuesdays and Thursdays are odd period days, and day B, Wednesday and Friday are our even periods, 2, 4, 6, 8. What you don't see on the schedule is Monday. Monday is a completely asynchronous day for learning. So what a student does is on Monday they get up. The only live thing they have with teachers are first thing in the morning, they have to log into their academic coaching class for attendance purposes, and it's a live interaction with their teacher. Then afterwards, they are able to complete 45 minutes of work per academic class. I can't reiterate enough this with students and parents. There is work students have to complete each Monday. It's independent and it's self-paced, but there's work for each of their classes Monday. Now, if I'm a student, I'm on Tuesday through Friday, that's when I have synchronous time with my teachers, live work with my teachers. So if I'm a student on Tuesday, I'm going to get up in the morning, eat my breakfast, and then at 7:50, I'm going to log in for academic coaching. Again, it's for attendance purposes. So I'm logged in, I see my academic coaching teacher, they verify that I'm awake and ready for learning for the day. A student who fails to log in is, going to get dinged on attendance. They're going to get a phone call from the school. At 8:10, I'm going to log in to my first period class and I'm going to complete my work for first period. Tuesday at 9:45, I get a 5-minute break between first and third period, and then at 9:45, I'm going to log in and I'm going to complete my third period materials, whether it's live or asynchronous, or, meaning self-paced. At 11:15, no matter what day it is, everybody gets a lunch. At 12 o'clock, I'm going to log in and I'm going to complete my 5th period work. And then at 1:30, I'm going to complete my 7th period work and I'm going to be done with my work at 3 p.m. So this is Tuesdays and Thursdays schedule, as you can see. So for Wednesday and Friday, or my even days for periods 2, 4, 6, 8, the timing is the same. I'm going to log in at those times. I'm going to complete my work. There is flexibility, and I'll talk about that on the next page. But, this is the daily bell schedule we'll be following. So in order to be as flexible as possible but increase rigor, we have to break up how we conduct school into 2 formats. Live, or what we call synchronous, which is a face-to-face lesson through the online platform. And then there's asynchronous, which means it's an activity, a demonstration, a recorded video that can be completed independently without live interaction with a teacher. And so there's a flexibility with this. Some students, because we're in a distance learning format, some students are going to be responsible for helping little brothers and little sisters. There's going to be a little bit more difficulty for them to be live all the time. And we do not expect students to be live on Zoom, on these platforms, all day, every day. It's just impossible. It'd be a burnout for students and a burnout for teachers. So there's flexibility in there. But at the same point, students are going to be required to be live with teachers at some point during the week. So if we look at our requirements, which is the second line here, students are going to be required to complete the following per class per week. First off, 90 minutes of synchronous or live lessons with their teacher, and I'll walk you through this. There's also going to be 90 minutes of asynchronous or self-paced independent lessons. Then on a third day, there's going to be an additional 45 minutes or asynchronous lesson every Monday. So if we look at this, per class per week, there are 3 separate days. One day that would be synchronous, one day that would be asynchronous, and then one day that would be a Monday, which is completely asynchronous. Now, there is some flexibility with these rules. But what we can't change is that every student must be engaged in their synchronous or live lesson for 90 minutes once per week. That is a requirement we have. So we're going to use this schedule as an example, and we're really going to concentrate on third period, which is Algebra 1 honors. So third period is considered an odd period, 1, 3, 5, 7. And third period occurs Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'm going to use that as an example of how this student would follow their schedule for the week. So keeping in mind that Algebra 2 is a third period class in that previous schedule. A third period class occurs every Tuesday and Thursday. So the requirements for this student for Algebra 2 is every Monday, they are going to log in and complete a self-paced asynchronous lesson Monday, kind of at their own convenience. But it needs to be done each Monday. Then Mrs. Smith, the Algebra 2 teacher, contacts the student and says, I need you in your live lesson every Tuesday, third period, 9:45 to 11:15. That means that student logs in to Mrs. Smith's class via Canvas and Zoom, if she uses Zoom, at 9:45 and does work live with the teacher. Now, what that work looks like depends upon the teacher and the lesson at hand. So there are 2 days of the week this student is already engaged in learning. Now, that third opportunity comes from 90 minutes on Thursday. Now, Mrs. Smith is going to have a live class on Thursday, and this is where that flexibility comes in. The student has already done his synchronous or her synchronous lesson for the week. Mrs. Smith is live on Thursday. That student can complete the lesson self-paced or asynchronous by accessing Mrs. Smith's page or Canvas page and completing the work in the lesson. Or, this is really critical, and this is what we highly suggest of a lot of students, if possible. Go ahead and log in and do another synchronous lesson. So you're able to get live feedback and work with the teacher. But because we're offering flexibility, the student, since they've already completed their live lesson on Tuesday, isn't required to spend another day in a synchronous lesson, even though we highly recommend it. Again, just to reiterate, it is beneficial to the student to be synchronous with their teacher as much as possible. But we understand that it's not always possible given that students are at home in unique situations. And that's why we're being as flexible as possible. Now, if your student is scheduled to be in a synchronous lesson on any given day and they're unable to, we expect parents to call and report their child absent.
Hi everyone, this is Mr. Rogers, and I'm going to continue the conversation about attendance and what the expectations are for students when it comes to attendance requirements that would be reported to the state for truancy if they're not fulfilled, and something that could lead to the denial of coursework if students aren't keeping up with attendance. So again, this is just really a reiteration of what Mr. Springer was talking about. Essentially, those days that you're going to attend add up to 3.75 hours of coursework engagement. That includes a 45-minute Monday lesson, which is 0.75 hours, and then those two 90-minute sessions. Teachers are going to be tracking whether or not you are in an in-person live session each week, at least one of the two, and whether or not you've done the coursework from both of those 90-minute sessions. So if you do your 45-minute Monday lesson and you are in attendance at one of the two 90-minute lessons and do all of the work from the other 90-minute lesson, whether you're in attendance at that one or not, you would be counted as in attendance for the entire week. If any of that coursework is missing, based upon the amount of coursework that you missed, we would count you absent for an equivalent number of days. An important note here at the bottom is even if you're passing a class, if you are missing the equivalent of 6 hours of coursework without an excuse, you may be denied credit for that course. So even if you're keeping up with all the work, but you don't show up to any of the Zoom meetings, or if you're coming to all the Zoom meetings, but you have a refusal to do the work in the course, that if that adds up enough, that can actually cost you credit for that course, even if you're doing okay on the actual grades. So please make sure that you keep in mind that we need you to both keep up with your grades in each class, but also make sure that you're having face-to-face contact with your teacher and that you're in constant communication anytime that you can't have face-to-face contact in a week. We'll be as flexible as we possibly can, and you can feel free to reach out to me or Mr. Springer if there's an extreme circumstance. We know that those things can come up right now. But please make sure that we are in attendance as often as possible when teachers are offering these learning opportunities.
Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Powell and I'm going to cover the procedure for schedule changes. If a student would like to change his, her, or their schedule, we would like for the students to only change their schedules for the following reasons. Number one, to make a level change. For example, if a student wanted to make a phase change from Honors English to College Prep English. Number two, to add a study hall into their schedule if they have a full schedule, and that would be 7 classes in one semester. Or number three, to flip a study hall to a desired semester. To access the online schedule change form, students will need to first go to the Athens City School website, which is shown on the screen, and select schools at the top of the page, and then click on that and select high school. On the next screen on the left-hand side, you'll see a spot titled AHS Guidance. Click on that screen. Finally, on the Athens High School Guidance website, you'll select Schedule Change Request in the right-hand column and click on that link. Then you'll complete that form. Once we receive the schedule change request, school counselors will respond to this request at our earliest convenience. This may take up to 24 to 48 hours, but we really hope not. We would like to attend to those earlier. After the request is addressed, the school counselor will email the student on his, her, or their school Gmail account and let them know the status of the change. However, some changes cannot be made due to scheduling conflicts, full schedules, or limited course offerings. Please note, school counselors will not honor emails or phone calls to schedule a class change. Also, school counselors are unable to honor teacher requests.
Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Ampabin and I'm going to talk to you all about the graduation requirements. All students need a total of 22 credits in order to graduate from Athens High School. Every student will need at least 4 credits of English, 4 credits of math, 3 credits of science, 3.5 credits of social studies, a half a credit of health, a half a credit of phys ed, and if you are participating in at least 2 seasons of an AHS sport, you can use a PE waiver, and that will waive your PE requirement, and you would just make up the half a credit phys ed. You would make that up in another area, another elective area. Students also need 1 credit of fine arts and 5.5 credits of electives, so that equals to a total of 22 credits. Students should average a minimum of 5.5 credits per school year. Now I'm going to talk about the state testing requirements. So the state testing requirements is different for each graduation class. So I'm going to focus on the class of 2024. So for the class of 2024, students need to earn a passing score on the Algebra 1 end of course exam and the ELA 2 end of course exam. Students typically take the Algebra 1 end of course exam in 9th grade, and they typically take the English 2 end of course exam in their sophomore year. Students will also likely have to take an additional ELC test in the areas of biology, American history, and government to satisfy other graduation requirements. Please keep in mind that state testing requirements may change due to the pandemic. Now I'm going to move into athletic eligibility. So in order to participate in athletics, students must be registered for a minimum of 5 credits. Phys ed, aerobics, and strength classes do not count in this total. Students must have a minimum of 1.67 GPA in the preceding marking period. However, this is not applicable for the fall 2020 participation due to the pandemic. In addition, summer school may not be used to raise a student's GPA or regain eligibility, and a student must earn no more than 1 F in a marking period.
So this is Mr. Springer again. Just some updates for this year. Since we're starting in a remote learning situation, there will be no class fees. And that's class fees. And we're not talking about travel fees, but class fees are for classes such as art, woods, classes such as that. So there were not going to be any class fees. And there may be athletic transportation fees, but we're still in the process of maneuvering through athletics. So that'll be announced later. Please don't start sending in money for travel fees yet. So you've probably heard the unique word used a lot. We are definitely in a unique situation. And, you know, starting out in a digital format changes a lot of things. And so we've had to make some changes to classes. For example, fine arts classes. It's like, how do you do ceramics from home? How do you do mixed media from home, digital photography, those type of things? There's not a clear-cut answer. So I talked with our fine arts teachers, and in order to maintain consistency between standards, completed coursework, all mixed media, digital photography, ceramics classes, and their advanced components have been changed to Art 1. We will provide supplies for those classes that will go home to students who are enrolled in those classes. So if you look on your schedule and you see Art 1, you're like, I didn't sign up for that. I signed up for mixed media. Well, it's changed to Art 1 in order to maintain that consistency between the standards and what you're doing in the class. But supplies will be provided for you. And further, world language classes, all world language classes will remain online even if we come back face to face. What that looks like we can explain later, but that's one of the decisions we move towards as a district. So next comes information about materials. So right now, since we have schedule changes going on, we can't distribute textbooks yet because students are changing classes, enrolling into art, or moving from art into different classes. So after September 4th is when we're going to distribute textbooks, common reads for English classes, common reads for sociology, and materials for such classes as Art 1. Other classes have some materials and they're being taken care of on a case-by-case basis. For example, Ms. Stoller's classes. She's going to take care of that for her classes, and possibly Mr. Hansel. So we'll be in communication with you on those. But as far as pickup for textbooks and things like that, Mr. Rogers will communicate that the week prior to September 4th. So we appreciate your time listening in. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. We have a lot of answers to those questions. There are some questions we don't have the answer to yet. We're still waiting for guidance from the state. But you can always reach us at the following emails. We appreciate you, and we'll see you back in school on the 31st. Thank you.